Abhiskek, come. Oti.
We should say now, before I put on my microphone, he came from Singapore here in Ioannina for us. Please applaud. Thank you very much for being here. The floor is yours.
My name is Abhiskek. I'm founder and CEO of Tookitaki. I'm going to talk about one of our biggest criminal activity of our society, which is digital fraud. But even before I begin, I just wanted to know, right, is any one of you or your family have seen digital fraud? Any show of hands? Wow. So we know it's important, right? And that's what I'm going to talk about in the next 5 minutes. Talk about how this activity is impacting us and our lives. So let's look at some numbers. Almost $5 trillion is actually laundered and there is fraud happening. And almost every organization is spending 5% of their revenue on getting fraud. So it's a big number. But what is more interesting to know is that every day a new scenario is coming up. It's not like a fraud that is there like a month back is the same fraud that's happening tomorrow. Every day a new scenario is coming. Now, there was a global research done a couple of months back to figure out how is all these new scenarios coming up every day and changing every day. Is it all different? How are the bad guys creating so many of these scenarios literally every day? Now, what the research showed was very interesting. Almost 70% of the fraud scenarios are very common. They share the same DNA. It's like the COVID virus, right? When you have the virus, the manifestation of what it happens on every single individual might be quite different. But then the underlying DNA is the same. That's what's happening. Now let me give you 2 examples. And these are examples which are very personal to me. My grandmom called me 3 months back that, hey, you know something? I created a payments account, a wallet, and within 7 days, all of her money was lost. And she was like, what happened? I didn't know. Somebody from the bank or the payments company called her, asked her OTP. She thought it was a real bank person, and that's it. Once she shared her OTP, her entire money was gone. Now, this is a second scenario. One of our interns in the company saw a Facebook ad. She clicked it, and then she went to an app which exactly looked like her banking app. She entered details, and within 5 minutes, all her money was gone. Now, if we analyze the 2 scenarios, which are personal, as I said, one was for my grandmom, other is somebody working in my company, you will see that if you actually look at a mathematical level, all of them almost share 90% commonality. So what are the bad guys doing? They are using AI, machine learning, using the fundamental blocks and creating hundreds of that scenario, which makes it so difficult for banks and us to really fight them. Now, these 2 examples are not just the only 2 examples. There are hundreds of scenarios coming up, and because we as individuals are not sharing it, meaning if my grandmom had this problem, she would be very scared to talk about it to his friends and family, right? Nobody knows, but everybody is getting affected. So there was a research that was done, almost 30 to 40%, right, of the companies literally said that they're hardly prepared to fight this. Because, number one, there is hardly any sharing of information. Nobody talks about it because they feel it's a stigma, right? We need to stop that. That is what global regulatory bodies, global institutions, countries have started doing, sharing information across the ecosystem. One of the biggest initiatives that's being done now is in the US. There's something called as FinCEN 314B, where they're asking everybody to come and share information. One of the initiatives of the government of the country I stay in, Singapore, is called COSMIC. Until and unless we come together and share, it would be very difficult to stop. So let me then talk about what it is. What does it mean to share? Like what are we talking to share, right? Three things. Number one, we need people in the industry to come together to share their scenarios or the problems that they're seeing. We are working with law firms, consultants to really get those scenarios. Because as I said, a lot of you actually raised hand. But maybe if there is a mechanism where the problems that you face, the scenarios that you got attacked by, if that can be shared, if there is awareness, then we can prevent it. The second is the technology of how can you bring those, how do you bring AI into this to prevent it? And the third is a governance framework. What is our government doing or government across the board doing to make it happen? The last one, which I wanted to end by talking about, the scenario that my grandmom really faced 3 months back. How do we stop it in Singapore and in Asia? What we do is we have created this sharing platform, and these are not clients, these are normal people, you and me. Whenever we see a scenario, we go to this environment. Think of it as a Wikipedia of information, Wikipedia of fraud scenarios. We go there, we talk about it, we share it. Once we share it, these information go back to the industry, and as an industry, we come together and protect it. That's all about me. Thank you all for listening. As I said, the only way to protect and prevent is sharing. If any one of you face the problem of fraud, do not just keep quiet. Just go back to your regulators, go back to the government, go back to the law enforcement to actually share that information, because that's the only way we can prevent this, one of the biggest criminal activity of our society. Thank you all.
Please take a seat. So, I am totally lost.
Why is that?
Just as human example. We have a friend that he lives in Latin America, in Peru.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a fraud there. If he is going to share with your systems the scenario of the fraud, it would be possible our friend in Europe to avoid the scenario.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit more? Because it's a little bit difficult to
understand.
Yes.
Sure.
I mean, are there any patterns behind the frauds that are the same so you can identify them? This is what I understood, but...
Absolutely. So, to give you a little bit of background, so I started my career in double-click Google engineering, and one of the toughest problems that we were solving there was in the initial days when the Android engine was launched, they had a lot of problems. And to understand the problems, you have to figure out what area of your phone or anything has issues, but nobody was wanting to share information. So one of the things that Google or Android ecosystem started doing is broadly taking information around, figuring out if there is certain software running in your phone, and the phone somebody is using in as you said, Peru, do we know what software that person is running, how long he is running? If the software he is running for more than 5 hours, the battery drains dramatically and the phone will immediately switch off. If that information is shared, what we try to do, can we actually find the same pattern in all phones running across the globe? Do we know that that specific software, it could be a video streaming software or whatever software, if it runs more than 5 hours, it will drain your battery and you will have a bad experience. That information is what we extracted, and then we started putting it in all other phones in the world, so that whenever somebody is running a software over a certain period of time, they get a notification and they don't have a bad experience. That same concept is what we do here. What we do, as your example, your friend might have a problem around what we call as account takeover. He gets a phone call from somebody, he shared some password, immediately after 5 minutes, all the money gone from his account. What actually happened? What happened was that when he shared those password details, somebody logged into their account from some IP address or somewhere that is not the right IP address that the person belongs to, number one. Number two, immediately he took the money and sent it to someone that is not part of your account, because you wouldn't want it to send it to an account that you don't know. The pattern that we extracted, that within certain period of time, if some part of your money is going that it doesn't belong to your account, you immediately stop it. Once you extract that pattern, you then bring it to someone in Europe. Same, you have a digital bank, you open up the bank account, somebody calls you with an OTP, you share. Suddenly, when the bad actors are trying to create an account which you don't have and trying to transfer, you immediately block. What we have seen, when you can bring this pattern, almost 50-60% of the fraud cases of normal people, of you and me, can be stopped because we know those scenarios. And when we apply those scenarios, this fraudulent activity can really be solved, and that's what we have seen working really across in Asia.
But in the real world, not in Europe. I mean, okay, you work in Tookitaki. I mean, you manage, you don't work. All these tools that you are developing, are they affordable? I mean, is it a common thing? It is premature now? This is my first question. The second question is, can you share with us an example? I mean, do you have an example that we can understand better, how this works?
Sure. So most of the leading payments digital banks in the Asia actually uses Tookitaki. So for instance, Tencent, I don't know if you're aware of Tencent. They are a payments company. Grab, if you go in Asia, most of the leading players uses us. Now, the way our platform works is we install our software in the networks of these payments and digital banks.
In their networks?
In their networks. So for instance, it's like not an antivirus software that you install in your computer. And then whenever there is a new virus that comes up, you get a small notification that, hey, a new virus have come up. Why don't you download it in your computer, and your computer is protected? Similarly, we have this large ecosystem of people sharing information. Our software is installed in the network. Whenever there is a new fraud scenario that comes up, all of our network participants get to know that, hey, a new account takeover has come up, or a new online hacking has come up. Why don't you patch your network?
May I ask you something? Sorry for interrupting. Are they informed that it's a new fraud, or their just a system blocks the fraud immediately?
No, they are informed. So all the companies get an information, just like an antivirus software, that, hey, a new scenario has come up. And the scenario can range from online hacking to account takeovers to money muling, you name it. Immediately you get to know, and then the companies sort of patch it. But there is a broader, what we are seeing, at least in Asian market, is something called as money muling, which is students are being used by the bad actors to sort of open up digital banking payment accounts. And they said that if you are able to mule those money, then you get a small percentage of that cut. Now, that is how money laundering is happening in a big way in a lot of the countries. The regulators are struggling because whom would you persecute, right? These are young students, right? They needed the money. So it's also a very social issue as well. There are tools to detect it, but then there are some social structures that we also need to fix. Otherwise, the social ecosystem sort of also breaks.
Okay. I have a last question, and then you can ask him whatever you want. I mean, he came from Singapore, so even for the trip. Tell me something. On one side, we have the identified scenarios regarding the frauds. It's more personal than the question. From your experience, have you identified also the common audience that, he loses his mind? I mean, is it a certain age? Are they people that they are digitally illiterate, for example? Do they have some, common characteristics?
meaning it is just to give you, it's very surprising that a lot of people who is digitally literate as well fall into the trap, and that's the biggest worry. I can tell you, right? One of my friends actually saw a ad on Instagram, and he clicked an ad, and it came to a website which exactly looked like the bank's website. There is no difference. He entered the details, and that's it. All his money was gone. So it's not just my grandmom falling into the trap.
This is why I ask you, because people that they are informed, they fall in the trap.
No, so that is what the bad actors are doing. They're creating social engineering. I want to give you a last example. 3 weeks back, in Hong Kong, one of the largest asset management companies got frauded by $20 million. How did this happen?
$20 million.
Yes. There was a deep fake of the company's CEO speaking. So the CFO got a message in the WhatsApp, and I would really want you guys, whoever is, in the industry, just to be very careful. Got a message on the WhatsApp that, hey, can you please click the Zoom link? I want to speak to you. He clicked it. A Zoom call started. It was the CEO on the other side speaking, but it was a deep fake video. He said, the company needs so much money. Can you please transfer $20 million? It's one of the biggest hedge funds, so I'm guessing that was allowed. He transferred to some account. Everything was gone. It came in the paper. So deep fake social engineering is one of the biggest challenges we face. So I would request all of you, if you ever get messages from anything that you don't know, please do not click. You will see messages, videos of real people actually created. So be very careful. That would be my final request to all of you.
Okay, thank you a lot.
Thank you very much, and hopefully it was helpful.
Just a moment to bring the microphone, okay? Katerina.
Good afternoon. My name is Good afternoon. My name is Papadimitriou from Empire's Bank. We're very proud having you here.
Thank you very much.
I think there's a huge market from you in Asia, all over the world. My question is very, very simple. That's simple. I'm wondering, what's the reason for you that focused on that conference, that tech conference, since Ioannina is not a big city, it's not the center of the world?
One of my investors is based here, and we wanted to my investor wanted to promote the ecosystem here. And because, the vision of, when I started Tookitaki, my vision was to do, meaning, of course, making money is one area, but actually being able to contribute back to society is something that I'm very personal about. So, because he stays here in Greece, he wanted me to sort of contribute the learnings that I see to this economy which is growing and might not be aware of what's going on. So he said, why don't you come over? Do you want to come over and talk about it? You are very passionate about it. I said, yeah, meaning if John would have me, I would come down and do it. And then essentially, John had to fight with the embassy to get me here, and credits to John to make it happen.
Tassos.
Hi, Abhiskek.
Hi.
First of all, we all appreciate it. You made the effort to come here, and we thank you very much. Also for the very interesting presentation. My question is, are there any other companies offering similar services to yours, to financial institutions? And what's your value proposition? What makes you different?
Well, we are one of the only institutions in the world which is fighting fraud through a community or an ecosystem. Most of the banks, most of the institutions would have some rule system to fight fraud, but as I discussed, as I shared, whatever rules that you are using, 2 weeks back is completely useless 2 weeks from now. So until and unless you have built an ecosystem which can transfer learning across, there is no way to fight this. And that's why I said $5 trillion is laundered. And with countries mandating of sharing of the loss, like certain countries like in Singapore and few other countries are saying, if if a normal human being loses money, then it's a bank's responsibility to also share the loss. And a lot of the countries will start bringing in. Now, when that starts bringing in, we would see that more adoption coming up. So, as I said, we are sort of bringing a technology that is sort of changing the paradigm of how we fight this. Because this is a serious problem, and until and unless we have the community coming together, it would be very difficult to fight it.
I have a last question, but... Okay. Θέλει κάποιος άλλος να ρωτήσει κάτι? The last one, and we can sit here for hours. Look, we have AI, so I understand that the platform is based on AI. So just say, very simply, that you can identify the scenarios that lead to the fraud. Okay, so you can collect all these scenarios and then inform the customers, the banking institutions, your clients, whatever, about the recurring scenario of a fraud, right? So let's turn it on the other side. You repeated a lot of times the bad guys. So just say that the bad guys use artificial intelligence to understand the way that you battle the scenarios. Can you just, don't be very, technical with, difficult terms, but is this happening already, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you have another AI system that battles your AI, right?
Yes. And that is absolutely happening because $4 trillion is involved here.
$4 trillion.
Trillion dollar is laundered, right? So the other guys have much more powerful AI systems to beat the systems that we are building. And that's why it's important that we cannot fight it alone. If we have, 10, 20 million people, right, ecosystem, legal experts, all coming together, like as we said, so many people face the fraudulent scenario. If all of us start telling each other, not treating this as stigma, that's when we can stop. That's when, the power of people will come into play. So I would say, yes, the other side is extremely powerful, but, our side, for us, we look at, if we bring, the people together, I don't think that the other side can match that. And that's the bet that we are taking on human intelligence.
Okay, thank you a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thanks.